What are things that you feel like you guys used to?
I mean, we just had our normal practice and prep, trying to get acclimated to the things that we're going to see in the playoffs, things we're going to see versus the Clippers, and that's about it. There's nothing new as it relates to preparing. I mean, you're talking about a really good team, and you dive into them. You're talking about things you do well, and you want to shore those things up, and then you talk about things that could come up. But we're just kind of going about our business step by step, trying to improve from years past as it relates to situations and things of that nature that can come up. But for the most part, it's been our normal study and prep and talk it over and go back at it and go back in the lab and get back on the floor. It's just a cycle, and it's good to have this time in between games because it allows you to have some good going back and forth and dialogue with the players.
When you have this many days in between, it seems like the scrimmage is always in order. How, A, is that in the cards, and B, how important would it be to have that, to have one of those things?
Yes, it's in the cards, and it's important to get out there and play. And some of our guys haven't played in 8 or 9 days. So the more time we can get on the floor in 5-on-5 environments, just allows for them to get a chance to, be in game-like situations.
As far as Cameron and Biz, where are they at right now?
It's nothing to report on those guys.
When you look at the Clippers, you've talked about how they're like to get to their ISOs, they like to get to the mid-range. How much of this is just being able to sit down and guard a man to?
I mean, most of it in the playoffs is just that. You saw it last night in the 2 games that were played. A lot of it is just playing one-on-one and spacing and making the decision. Do you want to go blitz a guy with 2 guys and rotate, or do you want to guard him straight up and play versus the probabilities or the numbers? And those are decisions we have to make from the bench, but also giving the players the license to, make reads on the floor. But at this point in the season, everybody knows your plays. They know some of your counters, and it comes down to the ability to stay in front of the ball, contest without fouling, and you got to finish it with a rebound. So we've talked about all that stuff and different ways we can cut down on certain tendencies, but for the most part, that's what it is. You got to stay in front of the ball and play great defense.
CL tear, it took a while for Kawhi to get back to form, but he's not really gotten there. What have you seen for his ability to impact?
It's just efficient when you look at the numbers, going right and going left. There's somewhat of a difference, but it's not bad. One is just going one way is really, really good, and going the other way is still good, but no matter how you slice it, he can score in every environment. And I think that's the challenge that every team has faced with him. And now they have a ton of shooters around him and bigs that can get extra possessions off of those chances that he does miss. So he's back to form. You can see it. He's got the pop and the strength and the ability to get his shot off in any environment.
Monty, when the Western Conference Finals from 2 years ago comes up, what are some of the first things that come to mind for you with how that series played out?
Not really sure. I mean, we hadn't thought much about it as far as diagnosing it. I do remember them playing more zone, and in particular 2-3 zone. So that was they did, which we've talked about a little bit, but now they're playing a 3-2 zone. So it's a little bit different. But that team was different. They had Reggie, and now they have Russ. So those are 2 different point guards. Russ is getting the ball, and he is flying down the floor in transition, whereas Reggie was more of a setup half-court guy and spotted up and knocked down threes.
when the trade happened with Kevin, there was a lot of discussion, of course, around replacing McKell and how to fill in what he did. How instrumental has Josh been in that process?
He's been huge. He's a guy that guards multiple spots. He's able to put his hands on guys without fouling. He can block shots. The ability to guard the ball full court is something that Josh has, been able to do, and it's helped us. And I think guys read off of his ability to guard, and sometimes we allow him to stay with his matchup because he's in that guy's pocket, and that's what McHale used to do at times. So there's some similarities, but they're two still different defensive players, whereas McHale would rely on his length. Josh can rely on his strength a bit more. McHale's not the strongest dude in the world.
Monty, you had
Feel like that.
Monty, Kevin had obviously.
Why is everybody like behind me? I feel like I'm about to get jumped or something back in my old neighborhood.
How was you had Kevin Durant obviously had some extended absence since he's been here, but when he's come back, he's been integrated really well. Attribute that to the fact that he was able to fit in seamlessly both times when he's coming out to speak with a new team.
I think the willingness to understand what we do and implement it without losing who he is as a player, I think it helps him. And I think those guys understand that when they don't have to bring the ball up and dribble the whole game, they're fresher. And so Chris and Book have had the ball a lot more, and Kevin's been in spot up mode, and I think that's helped him. The easy answer is he's just a really good basketball player. He's one of the best ones I've ever been around. So those guys, and he's smart, and so they figure out ways to fit in on both ends of the floor. But I think for the most part, they probably talk a lot. All of them do in their group chats and all the other things that they do. But if you look at Kevin's history, like everywhere he goes, he does that. So it's nothing new for him.
Following up to that question, how important is this week with scrimmaging and things like that, specifically because of the way the backstretch of the season is going and just having that continuing? How was that to just have a week like this where you can, right?
I think for us, it's important because last year we didn't know who we were playing until like at the end, and you didn't have these days to prepare and get out there on the floor and see if your game plan is working, and then go back in the lab and do it again to have a chance to talk to the players about this and that type of defensive deal. Last year was pretty quick. Once we figured out who we were playing, it was like maybe we had 2 days. I'm not quite sure. Now we have a week to, try some things that we think may work. And if it doesn't, you got a day to go back and look at the film from practice and, think it over again. So, and I think it just gives guys a chance to heal. For us, we needed some time to mend some wounds and that kind of thing. So the time off, I believe, serves both teams really well. I don't know, man. I guess the way you would imagine. He's used to the physicality. I don't think the first time he played in those types of games, it probably was eye-opening how much he was getting hit and beat up, and fouls weren't being called. You probably have to ask him. I think he's more than used to the heightened awareness of the details that go into a playoff game. Whereas before, you probably thought you could do the same thing you did in the regular season. When you get to the playoffs, you realize it's a lot more physical, a lot more tenacious. The officiating is pretty consistent as far as allowing that kind of play. And I think that's eye-opening for any first-time player. Now, I think if you watch him in the playoffs now, he's probably one of the guys that initiates that kind of physicality because he has grown in that regard. And the playoffs is the best teacher. And I'm sure that that's allowed him to grow as a person, player, in certain situations because of that stress. So I'm sure he may have a totally different answer, but that's what I've seen.
Yeah, coach, also, Norman Powell's been dangerous in the perimeter, in the mid-range and in transition. So how can you counter that with, Torrey, you've already seen there, the top players or off the bench. Norman Powell comes off the bench.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys that when he comes in, he's not he's not facilitating offense for other guys. He's like going to get it. And he's drawing fouls in transition. He's trying to get to the rim. DHOs, he's getting downhill going right. And his paint touches are pretty efficient. He's getting to the free throw line or he's finishing with his right hand. Their closeout, as far as their team is concerned, they're the best closeout team in the league, and he's a big part of that. So he's a huge part of our discussions. I think our guys understand that he could be a key factor if you don't go into this series with a high level of awareness that when he comes in the game, he's capable of big nights. And I think our guys have a great deal of respect for what he's been able to do. And he's been in and out of their rotation, and he's still been able to put up 17, 18 points a night. And he can go for 25 if you don't have that heightened awareness of who he is as a player.
You touched on this a little bit, but when the roster changed late this season, how much did you rely on Chris just to help things figure things out?
I don't know what you mean.
When the roster changed, when Kevin came, you had some different parts. How much did you rely on Chris just to help figure things out?
I mean, I guess a ton. Chris is the one with the ball for the most part, and he and I talk about what we do on offense and defense a lot. And I respect his study of the game, his study of our team, and I take it into account. And a lot of it, if not all of it, I add to what we're trying to do because I know his intention. So I wouldn't grade it. I wouldn't know what percentage it is, but he's a huge part of what we do and what we've done just because he understands how we play. He understands how I think about the game. And so we spend a lot of time. Last night we talked for about 20 minutes just about basketball, other teams, what we're doing. Just because I value the input from somebody who's Chris played in like 1,000 basketball games, like 700 playoff games. That's impossible, but you get the point. He's just been there, done that. And so why not rely on that level of experience?
In a series like this, obviously defenses are going to be honing in on your main guys. How important is it for them to continue that let it fly mentality? Josh, Torrey, these guys that are going to have maybe some open looks.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part of any series. And you're seeing it in the playing games. Last night you watched Ingram. They just took him out. He was looking at 3 jerseys all night. And the ability to swing the ball and have a let it fly, catch shot mentality with confidence is key. And so for our guys, we understand that some of those shots are going to be a bit different just because it's the playoffs. The closeout that you're going to see is going to be a little bit different than it was in the regular season, but we don't want that to change our mentality. We've always felt like in our program, we have really intense practices, intense film sessions and walkthroughs because we understand that it's hard to duplicate that level in the regular season. So we try to with how we go about our business with the hopes that it helps the role players because the main guys who do it every night, they understand it. But if you can have guys on the second side who understand how important that closeout is or what to do in that closeout situation or having the confidence to take that shot no matter what, I think that serves you well.
Thanks,
Thank
Coach.
you.
Thank you.
142 games.
Playoffs.
I'll be sure to send it. I said I'll be sure to send it. I'm sure you.
Yeah.